I've got all my granny squares complete. I'm not sure about the number that I need at this moment in time. I've made a few and I may need to make more as I get on into the tutorial, but for now this will work. Now here comes the part where we need to decide on the combination of our front body, at least our front body, to give us an idea of the size that we want to make this top for. I will be making mine according to the image that I saw. So I know for mine it's 3 granny squares for the bottom row, as in the image here. So that's 3 granny squares for the bottom row, and then for the middle row it's 3 granny squares, and then we've got 1 on either side of the neckline, and that neckline was half a granny square. So I'll be making mine as in the image, and that's just the front of this top. Okay, so here's a few combinations that just to give you ideas, and I always find that it's better to lay out your granny squares so that you have a visual idea of what you're working towards. Here's a few combinations just to give you ideas. There may be times if you're working it for maybe bigger sizes, you may want to go with a boat neck, and a boat neck is just a straight neckline and it's joined at the shoulders. So it's all up to you. It's what works for the size that you are making it at. If you do want to make it for children's sizes, you could lessen up on the number of rounds that you work for your granny square. Maybe you could skip the last round and work how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, just 4 rounds. It all depends. So this is where you need to decide on your combination of squares that you are going to use for the size that you are making it. As I said, I'm working it exactly as I see it in the image. Now, from the image that I see 3 granny squares for the front of my body, right at the bottom of that image, 3. So I gather that there's 3 for the back as well. So my first round is going to be 6 granny squares, and that's going to make up my first round. I'll join these granny squares, and then I'll take my first and my last and join them to form a ring of granny squares. So the way that I'm working this is, if this is my granny square, my first round, and it's laid out flat, I'll start at this corner right here. Now if you look at the granny square, we've got our 4 corners, 1, 2, 3, 4. So right at the bottom, that will be corner 1, and that will be my starting point. And then we're working in steps. So step 1 will be around this edge of my granny square, and then once I get to corner 2, that will be step 2, and then moving on it will be step 3. At my third corner will be step 4, going down will be step 5, and then from this granny square to my next, I'll work a chain to join the 2. And then going up my next granny square will be step 6. And at that same point, I will join from one granny square to the next granny square. And then right at this corner here will be my step 7. So then thereafter, we're repeating the pattern. We'll start at step 3. We'll work step 3 here, step 4, step 5, step 6, step 7, and so on. Step 3, step 4, step 5, step 6, and step 7. So you'll continue on to join the first round of granny squares. The bottom edge of the granny square will be left undone. We'll come back and work up edging along that bottom edge. Okay, so let's get on with our first round. I'm keeping to the same hook, which was the 4mm hook. So right at that edge here, that's where I'll attach yarn. Now I chose to knot my yarn into that corner. Then it's a chain 1 and single crochet into that same corner. Then it's chain 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and single crochet into the next chain 2 space. So this you'll repeat 4 more times. So that's chain 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, single crochet in the next corner. That was 1 time, chain 4, single crochet in the next corner. That was 2 times, chain 4, single crochet in the next corner. That was 3 times, chain 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, single crochet in the next chain 2 space. That was 4 times. I did say corner here, but it's actually the chain 2 spaces. Okay, so you'll repeat the chain 4 single crochet 4 more times into the chain 2 spaces. So here we are at our next corner. Then it's chain 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, single crochet into that corner. So we've worked step 1. Now for step 2, turn, slip stitch twice into that chain 6. So make sure that you're working your slip stitches into the chain itself and not into the chain space. Then it's chain 9, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and turn. Single crochet into that same corner, then turn, slip stitch twice into this chain 9. Make certain your slip stitches are always into the chain itself and not into chain spaces. Then it's chain 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now we've worked step 2. Step 3, turn, single crochet into the next chain 2 space. Then it's chain 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, single crochet into the next chain 2 space. So you're going to repeat that chain 4 single crochet into the chain 2 space 3 more times. So that's chain 4, single crochet into the next chain 2 space. That was 1, chain 4, single crochet, that's 2, chain 4, single crochet, that's 3 times. And here I am at my next corner. Then it's chain 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and single crochet into this corner. So we've completed step 3. Now we're working step 4. it's turn, slip stitch twice into that chain 6, 1, 2, then chain 9, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, turn, single crochet into that corner, the same corner, then turn, slip stitch twice into that chain 9, so that's once and twice, then it's chain 4, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So we've worked step 4. We're now moving on to step 5. Then turn, single crochet into the next chain 2 space, chain 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, single crochet into the next chain 2 space. So now you're going to repeat the chain 4 single crochet 3 more times. So that's, let's go. That's 1 time, 2 times, and 3 times. Then it's chain 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, single crochet into the 4th corner. So we've completed our first granny square. We've worked around our first granny square. Now we're joining to our next granny square. So it's chain 3, 1, 2, 3. Pick up on your next granny square. Place them side by side. I find it easier working that way. And single crochet into that first corner at the bottom edge. Now we'll work step 6, and at the same time we'll join this edge of the second granny square to this edge of the first granny square. So it's chain 2, 1, 2, and then into the first granny square, into that chain 2 space, single crochet, chain 2, 1, 2, go back to our second granny square, into our next chain 2 space, single crochet, then it's chain 2, 1, 2, go back to our first granny square, into that chain 4 space, single crochet, chain 2, 1, 2, go back to our first granny square, our second granny square, into that chain 2 space, single crochet, chain 2, 1, 2, go back to our first granny square, into that chain 4 space, single crochet, then it's chain 2, back into our second granny square, our next chain 2 space, single crochet, chain 2, back into our first granny square, into that chain 4 space, single crochet, chain 2, go back into our second granny square, the next chain 2 space, single crochet, chain 2, back into our first granny square, that chain 4 space, single crochet, chain 2, back into our second granny square, the chain 2 space, single crochet, chain 2, back into our first granny square, the chain 2 space, single crochet. Then it's chain 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and single crochet into the corner of our second granny square. Now we've completed step 6, and this is what it looks like. Here we've worked our chain 4 into that chain 2 space at the corner. Step 7. So this is where we've stopped. So for step 7, it's turn, slip stitch twice into that chain 4. So that's once and twice. Then it's chain 3, 1, 2, 3, slip stitch into the center of that chain 8 from my corner on the other side. So right into that center, you can find the stitch right there. That's where you slip stitching, and make certain that you slip stitch into the stitch, into that chain itself, and not into the chain space. Then it's chain 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, turn, single crochet into that corner from the second granny square, then turn again, work 2 slip stitches into that chain 5, so 1, 2, then it's chain 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. After round 7, you need to go back and work round 3. Round 3 will be single crochet into the next chain 2 and so on, just as you had worked it here. Then that was round 3. Then you'll work, step 3. Then you'll come to this corner to work step 4, just as you had done here. And down this way is step 5, just as you had done here. Then you can bring in your next granny square. You'll join with the chain 3, go ahead and work step 6, just as you had done here. And then it's step 7 at this corner, and then it starts again. Step 3, step 4, step 5, step 6, bring in your next granny square, step 7, and so on. So you'll continue on to join your first round of granny squares. I've continued on. Here you see it, that was my start right here, and I moved on. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. I've joined my 6 granny squares, and that will be for my bottom round. Now I stopped at the end of my step 3. So this top edge was my step 3. So it was a chain 6 single crochet into that third corner. Then continuing on, now that I have my last round all done, I need to join the first granny square to the last granny square. So here's my chain 6, and I've single crocheted into that corner. Then it's turn, slip stitch twice into the chain 6. So that's 1 and 2. Then it's chain 3, 1, 2, 3. With that chain 3, we are going to join to our first granny square. So this is the corner 3 of our first granny square. And into that chain 9, right in the center of that corner. So into that middle of that chain 9, into the actual chain, slip stitch to join. So make sure that at this point the orientation of your work is correct and that your first round is not sort of twisted. So then go back. Then it's chain 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. After that, chain 4 into our corner. So it's our third corner from our last granny square, single crochet. Then turn, slip stitch twice into the chain 4. So that's once, twice. Then it's chain 2, 1, 2. Now here we're joining to our first granny squares. So we'll be working into these chain 4 spaces. So into our chain on the opposite side, single crochet. Then it's chain 2 into our chain 2 space from our last granny square, single crochet, chain 2 into the chain 4 space from our first granny square, single crochet, chain 2 into the chain 2 space from our last granny square, single crochet, chain 2 into the chain 4 space from our first granny square, single crochet, chain 2 into the chain 2 space from our last granny square, single crochet, chain 2 into the chain 4 space from our first granny square, single crochet, chain 2 into the chain 2 space from our last granny square, single crochet, chain 2 into the chain 4 space from our first granny square, single crochet, chain 2 into the chain 2 space from our last granny square, single crochet, chain 2 into the chain 4 space from our first granny square, single crochet. So that was the last chain 2 space. Then it's chain 2 into the corner at the bottom edge of our last granny square, single crochet. Then it's chain 2 and into our single crochet right from the start. So it's that first granny square at the start, slip stitch to join. So we've joined our first round and here it is. Now without fastening off, we're going to work this edging around this, the bottom of our top. So I'll just turn to the right side. Then it's chain 1, single crochet into that same space from where the chain 1 comes out of. Then it's chain 3, 1, 2, 3 into this corner right here, single crochet. Then it's chain 3 into the chain 2 space, single crochet, chain 3 into the chain 2 space, single crochet, chain 3 into the chain 2 space, single crochet. So you will continue with the chain 3 single crochet all around the bottom edge of this top. I've worked my way to the end of that edging round. So at the end of the round, it's a chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and then at that corner you can slip stitch to join. Then you can fasten off. So that we've done with our first round. Now we'll be working round 2, so that's adding the next layer of granny squares to this bottom layer. Now the way that we are going to work round 2 is we're going to work it granny square by granny square. So it's one granny square at a time that we're attaching to our bottom round. I just found it the easiest way to work instead of working the whole round and joining as well. So I'm going to start, if we look at it here, I'll start right at this top edge. That will be step 1. Then working down will be step 2. At this corner here, I'll come in to join to my flower motif. So let me do it here so that you can have a better view. So step 1, step 2, step 3, we'll join here to our flower motif. Now what I've done here is I've placed a stitch marker right into the center of that motif, because that's where I'm going to join all my granny squares. Eventually, like if I take the next one on that side, that too will join right here. This one here will join right there. So that's just a guide to get the center of my flower motif here. So that's just a little tip for you. Now, so step 3 is right here, and then we'll work step 4 along this edge to join this granny square to our first round. Then we'll work step 6 here, joining this edge to that flower motif on that side. And then we have step 5 going up, step 6 at this corner, step 7 to join here, so that we can complete the edging around this granny square. And then we'll bring in our next granny square to do exactly the same thing. So here I am. I've started round 2 at this top edge, and I'm working my way down here. Then I'll join here to this flower motif on my side here, and then I'll work down this way. So for step 1 of round 2, I attached yarn to this corner at the top edge here, and then I chained 1 and single crocheted into that same corner. Then it's a chain 9, single crochet into that same chain space. Then I turned, slip stitched twice into the chain 9. And then it was a chain 4, turn, single crochet into the next corner, a chain 4, single crochet into the next corner, and I repeated that chain 4 single crochet 3 more times. So here I am before my corner at the bottom. It's this corner that I'm going to join to my first round of granny squares. So once I've done that, then it's chain 6. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Single crochet into that corner at the bottom. So we've completed step 1 of round 2. Now we're working step 2, which is this motif at the bottom. Then it's turn, slip stitch twice into this chain 6. So that's 1, 2, chain 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And now we're going to join this chain 4 to that chain 9. If you look at our chain 9 from the bottom round, right at the center here is where we're going to join our chain 4. That will be the center of our motif. So you can place stitch markers along this point so that you know exactly where we're joining. So it's right here. Take your chain 4 and slip stitch to join into that space. Then it's chain 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, single crochet into the corner, that same corner, then turn, slip stitch twice into the chain 4 that we had just chained. That's once and twice. Then it's chain 2, 1, 2. Now on the opposite side, if we look at it here, let me place that down. On the opposite side, right here, this is our chain from the bottom round. We will single crochet into that chain to join. So this is what we have now. We formed, if we look at our petals here, we formed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So when we join the next one, we'll form more petals on that side. Then now we're joining our granny squares, this edge to that edge there. So it's the same as we had done it for our first round, where we join the 2 edges. Then it's chain 2, single crochet into that chain 2 space from our granny square from our second round, chain 2, single crochet into our chain 4 space, chain 2, single crochet into our chain 2 space, chain 2, single crochet into our chain 4 space, chain 2, single crochet into our chain 2 space, chain 2, single crochet into our chain 4 space, chain 2, single crochet into our chain 2 space, chain 2, single crochet into our chain 4 space, chain 2, single crochet into our chain 2 space, chain 2, single crochet into our chain space on the other side. So at this point, this is what it looks like. Before moving on, I went ahead and placed a stitch marker along the center of our flower motif. So if you look at it, here's that chain 9 from the round before, and then when we had worked the chain on the opposite side, we slip stitched into the center of that chain 9 here. So that becomes the center of our motif. And I think maybe it would be easier if you place stitch markers there, so that at that point, so that when you're joining your granny squares from these sides, you know exactly where to slip stitch into. So here it's chain 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, single crochet into this corner from our granny square from round 2, then turn, slip stitch twice into the chain 4, 1 and 2, then chain 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now here we are going to slip stitch into the center of our flower motif where we place the stitch marker. Then it's chain 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, turn, single crochet into that same corner from our granny square from round 2, then turn, slip stitch twice into the chain 4 that we had just worked. So that's 1 and 2, then chain 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, single crochet into the chain 2 space, chain 4, single crochet into the chain 2 space. So you'll continue on with your chain 4s and single crochets to the last chain 2 space. I've worked my chain 4 and single crochet into that last chain 2 space before my corner right here. So at this point it's a chain 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and single crochet into that chain 2 space. Then it's turn, slip stitch twice into the chain 6, then it's chain 9, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, turn, single crochet into that same corner. So this is what you have, and if you look at it on the side, it's exactly the same. So we're going back up on the side, then we'll work around here and we'll end off there to join our first granny square. And then we'll bring in our next granny square and restart from this top edge, working down, going around this way and coming back along there. And we'll fasten off. So I'm going to join granny square by granny square for this round. Then it's turn, slip stitch times 2 into that chain 9. So that was 1 and here's 2. Then it's chain 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Single crochet into the next chain 2 space, and now we've completed step 6. Step 7 to complete this granny square, this first granny square, it's chain 4, single crochet into the chain 2 space, repeat this 3 more times, so that's 1, 2, 3, then it's a chain 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and here we're going to slip stitch into the second chain from our chain 9. Then you can fasten off and cut off the excess yarn. So we've joined the first granny square, and this is what it looks like. Now when you're bringing in your next granny square, it's very similar to the one that we worked on this side, except for here we'll be joining along this way, and then here as well we'll join, but we'll do it in exactly the same way as we did it here. So I will work with you for step 1, and thereafter you will follow the pattern as we had done for this granny square to complete here. I've attached yarn to the uppermost corner of my second granny square for round 2. So continuing from there, then it's chain 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. We'll now join this chain 4 to the granny square, our first granny square. So we'll join it into that chain 9 at the corner. So when you are joining to that center chain from your chain 9, make sure that you orientate your granny square as well, because this can be like really confusing. So you can slip stitch, and then it's chain 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and you'll come down and single crochet into that same corner. So this is what it looks like right here. Then slip stitch twice into that chain 4 that we had just worked. So that's 1 and 2. Then it's chain 2, 1, 2. Now we're joining this granny square to the one that's already joined. So into that chain 6 from the first granny square, single crochet. Then it's chain 2. Go back to our second granny square into the chain 2 space, single crochet, chain 2, back into that chain 4 space on the next opposite side, single crochet, chain 2, back into our second granny square, into that chain 2 space, single crochet, and you'll continue on to the bottom edge. So here you see our flower motif take shape again. This is it. And so you can place a stitch marker into that center so that you know when you're joining, that's where you join. I've continued on working those chain 2 single crochets, so I repeated it 3 more times, and then for my last one I chained 2, single crocheted into the chain 6 from the opposite granny square, then I chained 4. So at this point we're working step 3, then it's slip stitch twice into the chain 4, that's 1, 2, then it's chain 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now what I've done was, here's my stitch marker, marking off the center of that motif. So I've chained 4, I'll go into that center and I will slip stitch to join. Just be careful to orientate yourself so that you don't end up twisting everything. So here it is. Then it's chain 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, single crochet back into this chain space at the corner. Then it's slip stitch twice into that chain 4, so this is what it looks like at the moment. Then it's a chain 2, and single crochet into that chain 6 from the granny square on the opposite side. So here I have this motif that we've just worked. Now we're going to continue on with our chain 2s, single crochet, chain 2, single crochet, chain 2, single crochet, and so on, just as we had worked on this side. And then it's back up again this way, and we're coming around to complete here, where we'll work our chain 6, and we'll slip stitch into the second chain from that chain to join. So now you've worked step 3, and then you'll work step 4, 5, 6, and you'll complete it with step 7 at this edge here. You'll continue on to complete every granny square for this round. For my bottom round, I worked 6 granny squares. So for this round, I need to work 6 granny squares as well. I've completed my granny squares for round 2. So here's that first round that I worked, and here's my second round, the upper round. Now to join your first and your last granny square from round 2, note that you would have worked step 5 repeat at the corner here. So at this point, and then you bring your granny squares together, and then you'll repeat step 3 to join. You'll repeat step 4 at the corner here, and that's to give you this flower motif. So once you have your second round joined, we'll work the shoulders. Now if you look here right at the top, I've gone ahead and joined 2 of my granny squares, but the way that I did this was kind of unusual, but there is some method in my madness. Okay, so for my first granny square, so this is the shoulder, and on the other side is the shoulder, and in between we'll have a neckline. We'll form the neckline with the half granny squares. So for my first, I'll call this shoulder 1, and it's on the front. So it's on the front side. Let's say this is the right shoulder. Okay, so it's shoulder 1, front side. Now here I repeated as for round 2, just as I had worked round 2, I repeated the same steps. So it was step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5 at the corner. And then I worked step 6. So here is when it changes. I worked a chain 4, then I worked single crochets into my chain 2 spaces. So you already know how to do this because we've already done this in the pattern. So when I got to my top corner here, I didn't work the same flower motif here. I just continued on to work those single crochets into my chain 2 spaces all the way, and my chain 4s all the way. And then when I got to the end here, and that was the starting point of this round, I chain 4 and I slip stitched into the second chain from chain 9. So this is where the pattern changes. It's actually at this corner here where I leave out the flower motif, because what happens here is I'm going to, when I add on my granny square on the back, for the back shoulder here, I don't want the flower motif here because I won't have a granny square to complete that motif here, because I'll go down to bring in my half granny square here. So there is no other granny square, full granny square coming in there to complete a flower motif. I hope that makes sense. Now once I worked shoulder 1 on the front side, you can see that this flower motif is on the outside and not towards the neckline. We want to keep the neckline free of that flower motif. And then when I got to this side, I thought, I'll need to change the pattern in order to work this granny square on the front side for front shoulder 2, because I need no motif on this side. That means I'm attaching my yarn here, and I've got to prevent changing the pattern and just confusing it even more, I turned and I worked shoulder 1 on the back panel. So here's my back panel, and it's on the opposite side, and it's exactly the same. I started off at this corner, and it was step 1, coming down step 2, step 3 here, step 4, step 5, and then when I got to step 6 and 7 and 8, at step 8, I just skipped the flower motif, working a chain 4 into that corner, a chain 4 single crochet into that corner, chain 4 single crochets throughout, and then at the end it was a chain 4, and I slip stitched into the second chain from chain 9. So when you look at it, here it is. So I've got one shoulder on the front and the other on the back here. Okay, so now we'll work the front and work around, and then we'll come to this side working on it that way. So for this, you'll need your half granny squares. Now if you plan on working this as a boat neckline, so you'll just add a full granny square here, and there are no flower motifs on this edge here. We'll just continue on with the flower motif down here. So for a boat neck, you'll add in your granny square, and then when you're joining your shoulders at the top, you'll join to a certain point straight on, so that you have a straight neckline. Now this is for, especially if you want to make it for different sizes or the bigger sizes, you could go working this top in that way. Or you could, if you want a wider neckline, you could make fit in two granny squares, but that's going to be really wide. So it's all up to you. It's all up to the size that you are making this for. Okay, so bring in your half granny square. Attach yarn into your half granny square. So here I'm attaching it into the third chain from the chain 3 that counted as my first double crochet. So bring in that at that point. Then it's chain 3, and here we'll join. You need to match your granny square. So we've got corners here, then it's chain 2 space, and then it's another chain 2 space, and then we have our double crochet there. So into that chain 2 space, or sorry, the chain 4 space on the opposite side, attach yarn by slip stitching. Then it's chain 2, 1, 2, and here we're joining to our chain space on the opposite square. So it's that first chain 2 space right next to our chain 3, which counted as a double crochet. Then it's chain 2, 1, 2, join into that chain 4 from the opposite granny square. Chain 2, join to the half granny square, the chain 2 space, chain 2, join to the chain 6 space on the opposite side. So it's right here, the chain space right next to our corner. Then we'll continue on with the corner at the pattern at the corner that we worked here. So here it is a chain 4, 4, single crochet into the corner, turn, slip stitch twice into that chain 4, then it's chain 2 into that flower motif, into the center of that flower motif, slip stitch, then it's chain 4, go back to the corner here and single crochet, turn, slip stitch twice into that chain 4, then it's chain 2 into our chain space right next to the corner on the opposite side, and this is part of the flower motif, single crochet, chain 2 into the chain 2 space from our half granny square, single crochet. So here we're joining again, we're joining along this bottom edge of our granny squares. So here again it's just a chain 2, and then you single crochet into your chain 2 space, chain 2, single crochet into your chain 4 space. You go back and forth, up and down, just as in the pattern that we've already worked previously. So I've worked those chain 2 single crochets to join my 2 granny squares here, and now I'm here at my next corner. So the pattern is the same again. It's chain 2, single crochet into that chain 6 from this corner on this side, then it's chain 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, single crochet into the corner, turn, slip stitch twice into that chain 4, chain 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, turn, and here we're going back up our half granny square. So into that chain 2, single crochet, then it's a chain 4, single crochet into the next chain 2, and then to end off this round, into the last double crochet, work a single crochet, then you can fasten off. Now we'll bring in our 3rd granny square, and for the shoulder on the front shoulder on the opposite side. So that was shoulder 1, and here shoulder 2 of the front. So attach yarn, and here I'm attaching it. If we look at it, here's the corner, then there's a chain 2 space, a chain 2 space, and into that next double crochet. Then it's chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and into that single crochet that we had worked from our half double granny square, you can slip stitch to join. Now we'll continue on with the pattern just as we had done on that side. So then it's chain 2 into our next chain 2 space, single crochet, chain 2 into the next chain 4 space on the opposite granny square, single crochet, chain 2 into our chain 2 space, single crochet, chain 2 into our chain 4 space, into our chain 6 space. So it's the chain that's just before the corner on the opposite granny square. So single crochet, then it's chain 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and single crochet into our corner, turn, slip stitch twice into that chain 4, then it's chain 2, go into the center of that flower motif and slip stitch, chain 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, go back into our corner and single crochet, turn, slip stitch twice into that chain 4, 1, 2, and then here we are. So this is what it looks like. So we're going to join this end to that end. So here, then it's chain 2, 1, 2, and single crochet into our chain 6 space. So that's the opposite chain 6 on the side. Remember, we're working on the bottom granny square now. So let's look at it. Here it is, and this is what we're working into. So it's the chain 6 right at that corner. Then it's chain 2, chain 2, single crochet into the chain 2 space, chain 2, single crochet into the next chain 4 space, chain 2, single crochet into the chain 2 space, chain 2, single crochet into the chain 4 space, chain 2, single crochet into the chain 2 space, chain 2, single crochet into the chain 4 space, it's the next chain 4 space, chain 2, single crochet into the chain 2 space, chain 2, single crochet into the chain 4 space, chain 2, single crochet into the chain 2 space, chain 2, single crochet into the, so here it's the chain 6, and here's it at the corner of the granny square. Then it's chain 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. We're at the next corner, single crochet into that corner, turn, 2 slip stitches into that chain 4, then it's chain 2, go into your flower motif. So I haven't marked off this one with a stitch marker, so it is rather difficult, but I'll get it. Here it is. Slip stitch into the center of that flower motif, then chain 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, go back into that corner and single crochet, turn, slip stitch twice into the chain 4, then it's chain 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and now we are not joining to the flower motif here at this edge, and I'll show you why soon. So with that chain 4, single crochet into the next chain 2 space. So at that point, let me just stop here and I'll show you why we're not joining along these sides. Remember, I have already worked my shoulder 1 on my back panel. That was already worked before I began the neckline and this. So here, when I'm coming through here, I will not complete this flower pattern. I'll continue on this side, and I'll leave these 2 edges unseamed or unworked, and that's going to form my armhole space. So this is it, and when I get back to it, once I'm done with my shoulders and my neckline, I'll fit in the next lot of granny squares for my sleeves right here, leaving this opened. So when you're working this round along this side of the granny square, you will just chain 4 and single crochet into our chain 2 spaces without joining to the granny square on the back of this top. 1, 2, 3, 4. Here it goes. 1, 2, 3, 4, and here it goes. So when you get here, remember when I join my sleeve, there's going to be the motif here because I'll be adding on more granny squares. So once I get to this outer corner, I need to continue on with my pattern. It's chain 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, single crochet into that chain 2 space. Then it's chain 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and on the opposite side right here, so this is we joining the shoulder from the front to the shoulder at the back here. So on that opposite side, you can find your center on the chain 9, slip stitch to join, and then it's chain 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and you'll get back into your corner, turn, slip stitch twice into that chain 4, then it's chain 2, 1, 2, so now here we're joining to this top edge. It's a bit confusing, but you'll get it. Once you see the pattern, you'll get it. So with that chain 2, join to our chain on this side, right next to our chain 9. So into that chain space, single crochet, then it's chain 2 into our chain 2 space on the opposite side, single crochet, chain 2, get back into that chain 2 space on the opposite side and single crochet, chain 2, single crochet into the chain 2 space, chain 2, single crochet into the chain 4 space, chain 2, single crochet into the chain 2 space, chain 2, single crochet into the chain 4 space, chain 2, single crochet into the chain 2 space, chain 2, single crochet into the chain 4 space, chain 2, single crochet into the chain 2 space, chain 2, single crochet into this chain at the corner, chain 2, single crochet into the corner on the side. Now we're leaving this portion unstitched because it forms the shoulder as well. So we're going to chain 2 and work down our granny square. We'll chain 4 here, and then it's single crochet into that chain 2, chain 4, single crochet into the chain 2, chain 4, single crochet into the chain 2, and then here right at the end we'll continue on with a chain 2, and we'll slip stitch into our start. So here it is, then it's fastened off. So we've joined the top edge here. There will be a flower motif here attaching to the sleeve. So you can fasten off, cut off the excess yarn. Here it is. Now here's our armhole space. If you find that this armhole space isn't wide enough for you, I'm just following the image that I see. So I know that they've used 1 granny square for the shoulder. So it's around 7 inches. So it will stretch a bit as well, taking into account that it does stretch. So yeah, I'd say it's around 7 inches, this armhole space. So you go ahead and on the other side, so on the back, now we've worked the front, so we're working the back, and it's exactly the same as we've done for the front. We'll bring in our half granny square on the side, attach it, and then we'll attach our shoulder for the next side, leaving this edge opened, then joining along this edge, and here we'll leave it open as well. I've continued on to complete the shoulder, the neckline and shoulder on the other side. So here I have my top at the moment. So these are the armhole spaces on either side. And then remember we had left those unjoined. We'll now work the sleeves. So the sleeve, we'll work it in exactly the same way as we had worked round 1 at the bottom here. This time we're working with as many granny squares as need be to get our armhole depth. So this part of our armhole space from the shoulder to that underarm is the armhole depth. So our sleeve, when we work our sleeve must fit into that armhole space. So I measured mine and it's around 7 inches and it takes 2 granny squares. So here I am, I've started off my sleeve with 2 granny squares. I joined these 2 granny squares in exactly the same way as I had when I worked round 1. So here I worked the step 1, then the step 2. So if I look at my granny squares here, I started off with step 1 going down up the side, then it was step 2 at the corner, step 3, step 4, step 5, brought in my next granny square, joined here with a chain 3, then I worked step 6, step 7 at this corner, and then I repeated my step 3 just as I had done on the side. So it was a step 3. Now because I needed 2 granny squares for my sleeve, I stopped there and then I brought both sides together and I worked the joining round here to join those granny squares. So this is what you see here. This is the start of my sleeve. This will be the bottom edge, and I'll work my way up this way. I'll bring in more granny squares. Now I'll start adding one granny square at a time, just as I had done for round 2 of my top here, where I added one granny square at a time. So I'll add on the next granny square and then continue on with the pattern until I have the length that I'm happy with for my sleeve. And according to the image that I see, it took 3 granny squares to complete the length on the sleeve. So I'll work this off camera and come back. It's just a repeat of the pattern again. Here's a portion of the sleeve that I've worked. Now for my third round, and this will be the last round, because when I add my third granny square, I get the length that I'm looking for my sleeve. Now when working your third round, here I've already worked a portion. Again, we're working one granny square at a time, just as we had done for round 2 of the body. Now for this round, right at the top edge, I completely skipped that corner. So it was the chain 6 or so that I had worked at the corner, this flower motif. And that's because this top edge is going to be joined at the underarm. So all I did here was skip the step 1, and then I just single crocheted into that corner, chain 4, and worked my chain 4 single crochets all the way down. So when I get to this corner, again, I'll repeat the same steps to work the corner just as I had done here. And then it's the same steps all the way. When I get back here, it's just a chain 4 and slip stitch to join. So there is no flower motif at this corner here. This is the corner that I'll join to my underarm. So for both the sleeves that you make, there must be one corner on your third round with no motif at the top edge. Here I have my sleeve, and I've joined 3 sets of granny squares to give me the length that I'm working at. So for my last round, I've already explained the first granny square, the joining of the first granny square. So that was exactly as round 2, where I had joined the first granny square on the body. Then for my second granny square, now this was exactly the same as round 2, where I had joined my second granny square. So here I started off, okay, for this granny square, for my second granny square on my third round of my sleeve, I attached yarn at the corner, and then it was the flower motif, because if I turned it on this side, for my first granny square that I had worked, there was no flower motif, and I said that's going to go under the armhole. So that was the first side, and as I got here, I worked my flower motif. So on the opposite side, when I turned, I'm beginning off with a flower motif. So when I attached here, I just repeated the same steps as I had done for the second granny square of round 2 of the body, where I had brought in the second granny square and joined it to the first one. So here it was step 1 at the corner, then step 2 joining the sides, step 3 at the corner, step 4 joining the sides, step 5 at the corner, step 6 joining the sides, and then here I worked step 7. So here again the corner is different. It's going to be at the underarm. So all I did was chain 4 and I single crocheted into that corner, and then I continued on working chain 4 single crochet along this top edge for step 8. And when I got to the end, to end that round, I chained 4 and I slip stitched into the second chain from my initial chain that I had started off here, the flower motif. So that's the sleeve all done. Now to join the sleeve to the body. When joining the sleeve to the armhole space here, make certain to align your flower motif at the top edge. So it's from the sleeve and here along the top edge of my shoulder where I've joined along there. So for the joining, I will be seaming everything in place. So I'm starting off here at the center of that flower motif and I will just knot it slightly to join here, and then I'll attach that to the flower motif on the opposite side and bring that together. So you can go once more there, bring it together, and then to skip spaces, I'll weave it into these chain spaces and then join to my next chain space. Again, weave it in to my second chain space and I'll join here into my second chain space. So it actually looks like it's been sort of slip stitched together. So here, weave it in to my chain space in the center of that chain space and join to the center of the chain space on the opposite side. So you'll weave it in to your stitches, get to the center of that chain space, chain 4 space, or rather into the chain 4 itself, and then on the opposite side attach to the center of that chain 4 as well. So if we have a look at it, this is what it looks like, and it looks like it's joined just as it is on the other sides as well. So you continue all around the armhole space. So here I've got my sleeve fitted and this is what it looks like. I tried my best to weave in so that the flower motifs still remain the same. Here's the underarm. I need to pull tightly on that to tighten it a bit. Okay, so here it all is. You'll repeat the same process for your second sleeve. For the edging at the bottom of the sleeve, I attached yarn to the chain 2 space. I then chain 4 single crochet, chain 4 single crochet into all chain 2 spaces, and then I slip stitched into that first stitch to join. Now for my second round of the edging, I'll slip stitch twice to get into the center of that chain 4. Then it's chain 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, single crochet into the next chain 4 space. Then it's chain 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, single crochet into the next chain 4 space, and you continue to the end of the round and slip stitch into that first slip stitch that we had worked into that first chain 4. I've completed round 2 of the edging. For my third round, it's slip stitch twice into that chain 5 space to get to the center of that chain 5. Then it's chain 5, single crochet into the next chain 5 space, and you continue on with chain 5, single crochet into the next chain 5 space all the way around this bottom edging. So the edging on my sleeve is complete. You'll repeat these same steps to work the second sleeve. To complete this top, along that bottom edge, I went ahead and worked an edging just as I had done for my sleeve. I sort of thought that looked a lot better. So here it goes. So it's just chain 5s and single crochets into my initial chain 4 spaces there. I attached yarn to the center of that chain 4 space, and then I worked. And for my third round, I did the same, attaching yarn to the center of that chain 5 space, and then I worked my pattern. And then I worked an edging for around the neckline, and here I worked 5 double crochet sets of 5 double crochets into my chain 4 spaces all along that neckline. So yeah, so just one more thing to do, and that's to weave in all these ends. I found that I weaved in all these ends. I brought all my ends. I found that the best way to get these ends weaved in was to weave them into your chain and then loose them into the center of that flower, as I've done here. So yes, that does it for this tutorial. Thank you for watching, and please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share.